Good morning, it's the 20th of November 2019. In this episode, we're going to check over our 5 indicator sets. We're going to see what this is doing to altcoins. This is an exciting episode because at the end, I'm going to go over some Bitcoin dominance and some altcoin dominance data that I hadn't looked at before, and it's revealed a trend that I don't think we should be missing out on. That's what's coming up on today's episode of the 24 Hours of Bitcoin. This is a really important episode for me. I'm really keen to see what these indicators are telling us. So let's jump in right away here and get into the weekly view of the Relative Strength Index. The RSI has been in a trend that's broken. We broke this top formation and we're on our way down. It does seem bearish. We broke another level. It does seem bearish from there. What I'm looking for is the last potential chance for the bulls to catch a place here before we're on our way down to the $5,800 level, which is sort of one of my longer term downside targets. Now, as we're zooming in, I want to pay attention to what's going on with the RSI right at this moment. We are at the same type of moment that we were back here after this pullback and consolidation. We have a very similar setup in the RSI, and the RSI did come back and retest just at this same place. And so now I really want to get into surgery, and I want to pay attention to this specifically on today's episode to see if we may be hitting a bottom where we are and pulling up from this very spot. Now on the 12-hour time frame, let's pay attention to what was going on with this divergence. And I'm going to pull this back so that we're paying attention to how the divergence played out here too. But higher highs, or higher lows rather, it came back and retested twice. Here we have the retest. Let's see how this manifests and unfolds to see if we get a pull up and a higher low on the relative strength index in the 12-hour time frame over the next while. We should see, that's what I'm looking to see right now as we're zooming in. And let's go into the 4-hour time frame just to be really watching that this is a divergence at this moment, just as we had a divergence at this moment. So again, we're just paying attention to similarities, that the RSI is down to exact similar levels, making a very similar divergence pattern. That's what we're looking to document. Zooming into the 1-hour time frame, it is really messy here. Let me clean it up. But we've got a divergence off of these lows and then higher divergence here. So the potential for a 1, 2, 3 bottom formation is setting up, and we are seeing the manifestation of it in the 4-hour and the 1-hour especially. And then we'll go back later and we'll check what happened with the 12-hour. Just want to zoom in here to see these higher lows setting up. And now let's go on to the next indicator, the Unbalanced Volume. So this is my volume profile of the trades. This is where I try to pay attention to the volume that's going along with the trades. And we can see we had some good positive volume on balance. And then on balance, we have some negative volume here as well. And so through all of the time in the past, I've gone through and I've documented where there are divergences from a selling overall to buying overall, from selling overall to buying overall, and we can certainly see it change from buying overall to selling overall in a very sharp moment there. Here again, we can see the bearishness, and then it went up. So here we've got a divergence from a bear to bull and from bull to bear at the same time, from bull to bear. And for my own part, I am just trying to observe this so that I try to make some sense of it, because this is making a very bullish setup here as this was building up, and then boom, we got nailed. So it's not really a completely predictive indicator. And if you've got any comments on how to use the Lazy Bear volume oscillator, I'd appreciate any of your comments in the thing below. But for now, I'm just continuing on observing the change from the dump. So we have dumping here, we have less dumping here, we have less dumping here. And this is what I'm trying to see, how strong the bears or the bulls are by the relative size of the volume at that time. Is it bullish or bearish? So right now we're watching for it to switch around from bearish to bullish at the very tip. And we can see that it'll happen very fast when it does. Let's zoom in on the 12-hour time frame to get some idea of the flavor of the dumping getting weaker and weaker as we've come to these 3 levels. And now I'm going to zoom into the 4-hour time frame. It's been dumping, hasn't changed, but it didn't here either until the last minute. So we'll be watching for this as time flows along. And if you haven't already, come over and join us on our Discord group, because we do track this exact thing as we're happening through the day. 1, 2, 3 formation. We're commenting on this formation as it's unfolding. One way or the other, we're tracking it, and we're verifying all of these indicators and more. There are many other traders on there who are providing insights that are very helpful. Sometimes I would say that their insights are more helpful than my own. So come and join us. Let's go now to the next indicator and check out the MACD. So here we are, cross to the negative, bearish, and I must say that the histogram is not switching to a more bullish stance here. This instead, right now, in the middle of the week right now, this is longer than the week before. So I want to see what happens over Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If the markets change, this will change the length of this last histogram here. It will monitor that. We can see it more closely on the daily time frame. We'll be watching for these histograms to pull back if we are going to go bullish, or they'll stretch further or stay negative like this if we're going down. Moving into the 12-hour time frame, we're watching for this histogram to pull itself up as this crosses over, or we can't be going up. We go into the 1 month time frame, the 4-hour time frame. There are many occasions I've been pretty excited about the 4-hour crossing positive. And there it goes, crossing positive again, there's again, but it is pretty noisy and it's not relevant until the 12-hour crosses. So we can see how the 4 hours trying to be bullish all the way down here. Pretty much every time the histogram is pulling up, the 4-hour is crossing. So we can see the noise in that younger oscillator, the shorter time frame oscillator. And we'll watch this 12-hour for the big turnaround. Let's zoom in now, see what's going on. The 1 hour is crossing to the positive as we're coming through this. So now as I'm zooming out and putting the price into it, it's more relevant at the point, because we do have a cross to the bullish side and a cross to the bullish side on a bullish divergence from the price. That is what we had back here. So we had a cross to the bull and then it just extended in a bullish divergence from the price. So I'm really keen to pay attention to that, especially as the 4-hour has crossed bullish. Let's clear this off again. The 4-hour has crossed bullish, but it's not as convincing. This is a little bit lower. Still okay that it's higher than this, but it's got some work to do to build into a longer term. Let's zoom in now to the next indicator and go from MACD indicator to the Ichimoku Cloud. So Ichimoku, let's get rid of the price so that we can see the blue line is crossed below the red line. Generally, this is a bullish with a pullback, exactly as we're seeing. It's a bullish stance because we're still above the cloud. The cloud is still positive, but it's in a bearish pullback and the beginning of a potential long bear run because the blue has crossed below the red. Until this crosses back positive and we're coming up off of this cloud, it is potentially continuation into a downtrend. If we go into the 1 day time frame, this is really important. The change here is really something to note because the blue and the red crossed here and they were both going down. Now the blue is crossed below the red, but the red is going up. Here's another one where the red was going up. So let's put the price back in and see what was going on there. It continued down further. It's twisted to the negative. This is all negative stuff as it's coming out of the cloud. The blue crossing below the red is a sell signal. The red going wide like that is a curiosity to me at this point. This is new to me, this kind of spread, but we're also seeing it on the weekly view. The very same spread as on the 12-hour. No, that was the daily view. Same spread as on the daily view. Let's pay attention to that. Now let's go into the 12-hour view. This is decidedly bearish, staying bearish. And cloud is getting wider, which indicates that we're going sideways from here, rather than if it was to stay narrow and thin, then we'd be going down more sharply. So that's interesting too, to see this pull back into a wider, very significantly wider cloud. And that kind of matches what the blue and the red are doing on the daily and the weekly time frame. This is new to me. I love it. 4-hour time frame, decidedly bearish. Still bearish. The cloud is still thin and on the trend with the prices still indicating like just continuing down from here. It doesn't give any kind of turnaround feel at all in the blue over the red. The trailing indicators come a bit sideways, but nothing with the cloud. Let's see how that ends up going, because in this turnaround, we just absolutely went through the cloud like there was nothing to do with this formation. The blue was below the red significantly. It had widened actually. All right, let's continue to zoom in. The 4-hour. Okay, here we are. The 1 hour is finally starting to give the potential for a turnaround, in that the blue has crossed above the red and is just holding there. Should it start to widen again as we're breaking higher, this would be additional verification of just the basic 1, 2, 3 pattern that's setting up right here. And with our divergences in the MACD and the divergence in the relative strength index, we're paying attention to this, but the Ichimoku cloud has overruled those divergences in the past. So let's see if those divergences are not just consolidation in the trend. I'm going to zoom in now from the 1 hour time frame into the 15-minute time frame and drag this back a little bit. We can see that it's still twisted to the negative. The blue is still below the red. Oh, it has just crossed. Same thing. Now we're looking at the 1, 2, 3 on this little wee time frame, and on the 5-minute, it is starting to verify. Let's go to the Bollinger Bands, because just as a quick recap, I want to circle a few things here. Right now, the prices are below the midline of the weekly Bollinger Band. And if I pull the prices back so we can see a scale from prices in the history, when prices are below the midline of the Bollinger Band on the weekly, we're in the downtrend. Even if we get above it, that doesn't mean we're in the uptrend yet. But once we do establish that we are above it, then that's when we're finally in the uptrend. So since the Bollinger Band is being so nasty to us here right now, we are either bouncing at the very edge and going back up to start the trend, or we're still continuing in the downtrend. As I zoom into the 1 day view, now I'm just observing to see what's going on, because we are laying right along the band as the band is coming down. The top is sort of expanding wide, parallel, and not going wide. It's not turning into a wider bell. And I don't know what it means. I'm just observing it now. In the 12-hour time frame, laying right along here, and this is in a parallel channel on the way downward. Just a little sideways action here, but this was, it came from outside the band and then in before the break all the way up. So let's see what's going on as we get into the closer time frames on this. The 4-hour time frame, out of the band into the middle and then blasted. Out of the band into the middle. What's up next? Well, we have the divergences, but the Ichimoku cloud isn't, well, it wasn't happy here either. It's not happy here, but we'll see what goes on. 1 hour time frame is making the 1, 2, 3 bottom formation. It's still below the midline. Let's watch to see. This will go up above the midline here on the 1 hour time frame. Then the 4 hour should be coming up to test the midline. And I'm not sure. I'll just be watching it as this unfolds. Let's zoom into the 15-minute time frame to see this larger 1, 2, 3 and the smaller 1, 2, 3. Still, we'll observe. And that's our main indicators. Let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance. It is languishing sideways again, still a little bit of move upward, but because it's failed and it hasn't really rushed upward, I'm thinking that that's losing it. And even though Bitcoin's been going down and the alts have been going down, I think that Bitcoin is going to be going up from where we are, and the alts are also going to be going up, and that Bitcoin dominance is going to come down. It'll be the ultimate for us. Then we haven't seen that run since March till July of 2017. Let's see what turns out. Before we get to the big discovery I made in the Bitcoin dominance and the altcoin dominance charts, let's take a quick look at what's going on here in our altcoin market watch, because we do have 37% holds on Binance. That's 61 right now, and that's dropped back a bit. We have really dropped back on our alerts. We could see, as I was talking about it a few days ago, and it actually happened, the alerts dropped way back. And the hold status coins pulled back a little bit, but they are more resilient. The alerts will pull back more quickly and we go back to more of a neutral status. Even though we've seen the bullishness pull back on both Binance and Poloniex, the bearishness hasn't actually picked up yet. Things are still in the neutral zone, so that's not so bad if things go, but it's showing us that the altcoins are going more sideways. An important thing to note here is that we had 11 exit coins on Binance this morning. Yesterday we had 11 exit coins as well. So we can see that some of these coins are pulling back now and less bullish. Should we see the neutrals dropping into the near fail category, that will be very important to pay attention to. But until that, we're just into a whole bunch of sideways markets. Now I want to finish with a study that I was doing here on the percentage of total market cap and total dominance. If we see all the altcoins versus Bitcoin, we can definitely see that Bitcoin was taking strong dominance here from March 31st. That was the peak right there. And we know that there was a big shock in the price movement on April the 1st. No fools. And away we went on this Bitcoin dominance increase. Then we've seen that dominance pull back a little bit and the altcoin dominance start to pick up. And that's not where the interesting data is. I started going through and looking at Ethereum versus everything else. Just taking a look at Ethereum and how is it growing over this last while. And then I go take a look at Ripple and the shape of it. How is it growing over the last while? Bitcoin Cash, it's dropped. Litecoin itself, however, as a project hasn't really done that much. It hasn't been a trending thing to take over more of the market cap of the general cryptocurrencies. And I figured it was going to go from where it is to $800 to $1,000 each. In the next 3 years or so, it may still, but it's not really standing out as something that's gaining market share from this. Then we go to EOS, same thing, it's been losing market share or coming back. But when we get to Binance, it's the only coin that has been in a continual uptrend in its market share. Bitcoin SV, okay, whatever. Stellar, no, really got kicked in the pants. They burned half of their own coins in an attempt to get the price to go back up. We'll see what goes on with that. But this is the main shocker for me, that according to everything else, when we compare this to everything, Binance is the only one, and it's small compared to everything, but it's the only one in a trend like this. And so when I go back to the charts now, I want to go and check out what's going on with BNB versus BTC and pay close attention to how this is growing right now. Even though it's pulling back at the moment, the overall trend of this market really is looking great. So we do have a 1, 2, 3 formation that's come up and broke above those levels and coming back to retest. So it's not a clean entry out of a 1, 2, 3 bottom formation yet. But if it comes back and gives us a nice clean consolidation, or if it comes up from here and gives us an ascending wedge triangle, it could certainly give us a place to get in. If it comes back all the way to these levels and hesitates, there's another place to be considering. Any place it comes back now and hesitates, or anywhere it comes up into these levels, I am definitely going to be adding on to my BNB pile and just leave it sit to see what that trend does over time as a percentage of market share. And as a final tip, I want to say that if BNB is a business plan that works, then I would hazard to guess that KCS is probably a similar business plan that has a lot of room to the upside and an enormous change in volume going on here. So as we have this chart formation setting up, if this has a similar business plan to BNB and BNB has taken over part of the market share, I would give KCS coin a pretty bright future from this low point here as well. Let's track this over time. We'll come back in several months and we'll see what percentage gains we might have gotten in KCS and in BNB if we had paid attention to this market sector of the utility tokens that in the past I had poo-hooed and thought, what's the use of it? Why have it? It's the only one growing in market share, market cap. So I really want to pay attention to these right now. And that's our special for today, is to highlight these two coins. Now let's go back and review and summarize what's going on in Bitcoin. And so in summary, when we look at the relative strength index on the 12-hour time frame, I'm imagining that we may be in a similar situation to back in these time frames right now. And as we zoom into the 4-hour time frame for the relative strength index, then the most important divergence is what's going on that's similar to the same price action that went on here. So we've got a couple clear things to watch for in the relative strength index. When we move to the unbalanced volume, the most important view for me is the view of the dumping just at the very tip of this right now. If the selling continues and we're breaking lower, clearly the prices are going to slide down more. If we turn to a positive volume as we're breaking above this, I want to pay attention to it and watch it. The key thing to watch for in the MACD is that on the 4-hour time frame we did cross to the positive just before we blasted out, and we have just now crossed to the positive as we're setting up here. When we go into the 1-hour time frame, it's more clear to see that we have a bullish divergence here off this price, very similar to what we had back on October the 24th and the 25th. When we go to the Moku Cloud, it's the 1-hour time frame that gives us any possibility of this being a good turnaround. The higher time frames are all bearish. It's only the 1-hour time frame and shorter that are starting to catch this, that it may be a turnaround. And it's very similar to what we saw on the 24th and 25th, that the Moku Cloud just got blasted through very quickly. So we'll be monitoring this in the shorter time frames just in case we do have that move up. And if I go over to the Bollinger Bands, for me this isn't giving me a great deal of information yet. I do see that on the 12-hour time frame we are at the very bottom of the band, and if we zoom into the 4-hour, it has come away from the band, similar to the pattern that we saw in the past here. But for my own part, we're still looking for an overall bearish and maybe the moment of the turnaround to the bullish, because the weekly Bollinger Bands are still below the midline. And thank you for tuning in for today's episode of the 24 Hours of Bitcoin. It is the 20th of November 2019. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. If you haven't already, come and join us on our Discord chat, because we'll continue the conversation as we monitor what Bitcoin prices are doing throughout the day. If this 1, 2, 3 formation starts to break higher, you can bet we'll be having all of our confirming indicators setting up, and we'll be commenting as it goes. See you over on the Discord chat. All the best with your Bitcoin trading. Bye for now.